Good evening, everybody. My name is Brett Parker. I'm the Executive Director of the New York City Bar. It's so wonderful to be with you, all of you here tonight. This is one of those times when I'm grateful that we're remote, because with the snow, there's a pretty good chance that we don't know what would have happened tonight. So I'll take the silver lining, and it's great to be here with everyone together. I have to say, gathering with the panelists beforehand, this is a very excited, enthusiastic group, and I'm going to get out of their way as quickly as possible because they're excited to speak with all of you. Just a couple of quick things. I want to first of all thank my colleagues, Devanshi Shaw and Christina Overton. Without them, none of this happens. Nothing that I do happens without them. So I appreciate them very much, and you're going to hear from Christina shortly. I want to thank my president, Sheila Boston, who is with me every day, and she is the bar of hope, and she has given me a lot of hope, and I appreciate her very much. So very, very grateful to hear her, and also very grateful that I'm not following her, because it is nothing. There's nothing worse than speaking after Sheila Boston. I just can't do that anymore. It's too upsetting. I want to thank everyone who's here in attendance. We have a great turnout, and all the bar associations that are sponsoring it. I am happy to be here, and I'm happy for the work that we do with many of these bar associations. We have a very close relationship with the Metropolitan Black Bar Association. I am a lifetime member and a proud lifetime member of the Mbba. We've hosted the National Bar Association meeting here in our meeting hall, which I'm not actually in, but if we were, this is the room that we would be sitting in. And anyway, I'm going to get out of the way. Christina is going to talk about some logistics, and then we'll get on with the program. And thanks so much to all of you for being here. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Brett. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Just a quick logistics overview. On your Zoom control panel, you have a chat box. Feel free to put your comments, your hellos, and greetings. And then we also have the Q&A. Feel free to leave your questions there for the Q&A following the panel discussion. I would also like to note before we get started that Chatham House rules apply to our discussion today. And now I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator, Sheila S Boston. She is the 69th president of the New York City Bar Association, the first woman of color to become president of the City Bar in 2020, the year of its 150th anniversary, amidst the pandemic and our country's reckoning with racial injustice. She has led the City Bar through the transition to the virtual new normal, all under the theme of her presidency, #BarOfHope. President Boston is a litigation partner at Arnold & Porter K. Scholler. She is a graduate of Princeton University and Columbia Law School. Take it away, President Boston.
Bless you, Christina. Thank you so much. Good evening and happy Black History Month to all. I do indeed hope that all of you are well and safe and healthy, both in mind as well as body. We have to take care of that all. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are here to present the Black Bar Association, then and now. And before I do introduce our esteemed panelists, I do want to take a moment to thank our co-sponsors so much. Other bar associations, actually. We have the Greater Washington Area Chapter Women Lawyers Division of the NBA, Caribbean Attorneys Network. We have New York Women's Bar Association, the Earl B. Gilliam Bar Association, the J. Franklin Byrne Bar Association, shout out to PG County because that's where I grew up, the Queens County Women's Bar Association, the Metropolitan Bar Association, and of course, the National Bar Association. Thank you one and all. Now, I assume you know this already. It's Black History Month, but Black history, let's be clear, is American history. And quite frankly, there's a lot that we may not have learned in our elementary, middle school, high school, even college about the accomplishments and the achievements of African Americans in this nation. And that's why we have Black History Month, to educate, to highlight, and quite frankly, to celebrate. So with that in mind, I am elated to have the privilege of introducing to some and presenting to others our four fabulous panelists, each of whom I know personally, each of whom I love and respect, and quite frankly, I just consider them family. So if I slip into brother so-and-so or sister so-and-so, please forgive me, but that's how I usually refer to them. But tonight I'm gonna try to be formal and proper. So with us this evening is Lloyd W. Brown II. He is the past board president of the Metropolitan Black Bar Association. He's a graduate of Columbia. That was his undergrad, Columbia University. And then he went to Rutgers University School of Law for his JD. Past President Brown is a proven financial services executive with experience at Fortune 100 companies. Reporting to a member of Citigroup's executive management team, past President Brown is a bank regulatory subject matter expert who focuses on the Community Reinvestment Act, that's the CRA, and he joined Citigroup in 2009 as its CRA executive and is the longest serving corporate CRA officer in the firm's history. I call him a big shot. Thank you for being here, President Brown. Past President Brown, excuse me. Okay, here we go. Next, we have Sister Anta Cissé-Green. She is the current president of the Metropolitan Black Bar Association, which, by the way, is the largest unified association of Black and other minority lawyers in the New York metropolitan area. President Cissé-Green received her JD from Brooklyn Law School, summa cum laude, and her LLM in tax from NYU School of Law. She currently serves as Associate General Counsel and Director of Legal Operations at NYU Langone Health, with primary responsibility for advising the Office of Development and Alumni Affairs on a variety of fundraising and tax-related legal matters. That's Sister Cissé-Green. Next, we have the one and only, the Honorable Elle Priscilla Hall. She is a longtime member of the National Bar Association. Justice Hall currently serves on the Board of Governors as a member at large and has for many years been a member of both the Metropolitan Black Bar Association and the Association of Black Women Attorneys, whom we affectionately call ABWA here in New York. Appointed by Governor David Paterson on March 9th, 2009, Judge Hall formerly served as an Associate Justice of the New York State Appellate Division, 2nd Department for 9 years. Prior to that, Justice Hall served as the Administrative Judge of the New York State Supreme Court criminal term in Kings County. She also volunteered to serve in family court. She's done it all. Justice Hall has received many awards and honors, but 2 of the honors which she's especially proud of include receipt of the William H. Hastie Award from the Mbba and the establishment of the Elle Priscilla Hall Leadership Academy by the Mbba. And last but certainly not least of all, we have Trisha Ck Hoffler. She is the vivacious, savvy, and charismatic current president of the National Bar Association. President Hoffler was educated in Switzerland at the University of Geneva, in Canada at Branksome Hall, and in the US, receiving her undergraduate degree from Smith College and her JD from Georgetown University. She's the CEO of the CK Hoffler firm. It's an Atlanta-based law firm that specializes in representing plaintiffs in all types of litigation, whether it's medical malpractice, wrongful death, to civil rights litigation, commercial litigation, employment discrimination. She does it all. She's licensed in 5 states, including Georgia, Florida, Virginia, DC, and Pennsylvania. And to date, President Hoffler has tried and or settled cases totaling over $800,000 million, y'all. Notably, she's counseled a civil rights icon, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, and has represented him and Rainbow Push for the past 30 years. And I have to share this because she's just such a Renaissance woman. She speaks French fluently and is proficient in Spanish and Portuguese. I'm just saying, she is no joke. I want you to welcome all of our panelists. I wish we were in person so we could just give you a standing ovation and clap for you. So I'm just going to do that right now for you. All right, let's kick off this conversation. I'm really excited to be with all of you. Let's first educate our audience about the Mbba. So President Hoffler, we know that we have the American Bar Association, but what is this National Bar Association? When was it established and why was it established?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Madam President, Sheila Boston. I could literally spend hours talking about how magnificent, dynamic, extraordinary, wonderful, talented, brilliant, and beautiful Sheila Boston is and her contributions to not just New York, the state of New York, but throughout this country and the world. But I think she would be angry with me because that is not the purpose of this conference. But Sheila, I want to say thank you to all that you do. You are part of the leadership. You have been a leader at the National Bar Association. You've been an extraordinary member of the bar for many years. And so when you think of the National Bar Association, really, you think of Sheila Boston. And why do I say that? The National Bar Association was created in 1925 we have to really think back to a time when African-American lawyers were not allowed to become members or participate in the American Bar Association, the ABA, and thus we had the creation of the National Bar Association. Because after all, our best and our brightest in our community felt it was absolutely critical and necessary that we do the things and have a home so that we could grow, we could develop, we could train, we could help each other in all the things that are germane to the practice of law. We also have on this panel the Honorable Priscilla Hall, who is one of our other bar leaders, has been an extraordinary member of the National Bar for years, she and her sister. It's a family tradition. And so when we think about the National Bar, and certainly there are local bars, there are other national bars, the National Bar is born out of the need of African-American lawyers to be able to congregate, to live, to breathe, and to develop when they were excluded. But today, the National Bar is even now more relevant than ever, because when we think of social justice and the need on a national level to be able to address issues of concern to our communities as a whole, not just locally, but globally, there is one organization, of course I'm biased, that people turn to, and that's a National Bar, just a little bit biased. That's a National Bar Association because we represent, and it's going to be 70,000, the interest of over 70,000 primarily African-American lawyers in this country. Why do I say 70,000? Because we recently instituted a program where every single member of BALSA at any law school in this country will automatically be a member of the National Bar for free, of course.
So President, break it down. BALSA is?
The Black Law Students Association. Every law school in the country has a BALSA chapter. And many of you may not be aware, but for the most part, almost all African-American law students belong to BALSA. Okay. And it is, and so to have for us the pipeline that every single African-American law student would automatically be a member of the National Bar Association unless they opt out, is ensuring that we continue the pipeline of excellence and training and mentorship for our young law students.
To that I say amen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Past President Brown, I want to hear a little bit about the Mbba, the Metropolitan Black Bar Association here in New York, New York.
So good evening, Madam President and fellow panelists. It's delightful to be here. I won't follow CK, but I would just add that I also get the benefit of worshiping with Madam President at the Abyssinian Baptist Church. And so it is good to be with her. Now to the question at hand, the Metropolitan Black Bar Association was founded on July 5th, 1984. And it was the result of the merger of the Harlem Lawyers Association, which was formed in 1921, and the Bedford-Stuyvesant Lawyers Association, which was formed in 1933. I think if you think of the title of this panel and put everything in context, there is an underlying question about the need and the relevance for the Metropolitan Black Bar Association and any of the other affinity bar associations. And I would just say, if you look through the chronology, the New York State Bar was formed in 1876. The ABA was formed 2 years later. You have the Association of the Bar, or the City Bar. You have NYCLA and all these other bar associations, and you have other affinity bar associations. So I would say that the need and the relevance for the Met Bar yesterday, today, and tomorrow is that we have a specific constituency and focus that we serve, and the local communities need to have access to the Metropolitan Black Bar Association and any of the other NBA affiliate bar associations. And Madam President Hoffler, I just want to say the first bar association I joined was the NBA. So let me yield the floor.
Well, thank you. Well, moving right along, there is another special association to my heart. I am a member, as is the Honorable Elle Priscilla Hall. So Justice Hall, can you tell us a little bit about ABWA, the Association of Black Women Attorneys? And don't forget to come off of mute.
Thank you, President Boston, for that kind reminder. The Association of Black Women Attorneys was established in 1976. And we usually talk about 5 or 6 individuals who were the founders, but they actually were the founders and incorporators. There were many more than that. There were close to 15 or 20 persons who actually were founders of the ABWA. And the ABWA was established because there were young Black women lawyers who had come to New York, who were ambitious, who were smart, who were feeling isolated in their white institutions where they were working. They worked for firms, they worked for corporations, they worked for government agencies, and they were by themselves. And so they actually bound together to bounce ideas off of each other. They helped each other do research. They looked at each other's forms. They listened to each other while they tried to figure out how to navigate these institutions that they had not been involved with. Many of them had parents who'd gone to college, but very few of them had parents who were lawyers. And so they had no idea how to negotiate in the corporation. And so they bound together to talk. They used to meet in each other's homes. And that's how I got involved with the ABWA first, because I went to the first president's home, Paulette Caldwell. They were having a meeting and I got invited, and that's how I started hanging out with the ABWA. And indeed, I was this, I think, 6th president. So it was a sisterhood. It is a sisterhood. And speaking of sisters, since you mentioned my sister, let me say that the Honorable Shelvin Louise Marie Hall is the reason I joined the National Bar Association. She was a member since she was in law school. We are the first sister appellate court judges in the country. She in Illinois, I'm in New York. And we are staunch NBA members, and she is viewing this evening's program to hear about New York. But the ABWA is a sisterhood. We meet, we greet, we talk even on Zoom, and we work together to support each other, because now a lot of us are in firms. Before they were in single practitioners, but now they're in firms, but they still need the support. They need to listen to somebody who's gone this path before to let them know what the pitfalls are. So that is the genesis for the ABWA.
Wonderful. Thank you, Justice. And since we're doing little shout outs, I have to shout out to our current president, Jennifer Taiwo of Mbba. Bless you for all you do. So, Madam President Cissé-Green, we know that there's an MBA, there's the MBBA, and we know there are all these different affiliates. Can you just very briefly explain what exactly is the relationship? What are we saying when we say an affiliate? What's that all about?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, President Boston. It's such a pleasure to be on this panel with such esteemed, absolutely amazing idols as Judge Hall, Mr. Brown, Ms. Hoffler. I walk behind their shoes, right? They laid the foundation, and I'm here because of them. And I have to say the MBBA and NBA have a very close relationship, as they do with Mbba and with Mbba Black Bar Association, the former Bronx Black Bar Association. Every single one of us are affiliates of the NBA. And what that means is that we are a core part of what the NBA does, so that we can leverage resources, we can share ideas, we can connect with one another. It helps to really expand the geographic focus for all of us. So while we are local bar associations, the NBA allows a much bigger platform, and also helps us in terms of being able to identify and get involved in larger national issues and topics that face the Black community. And so as an affiliate, our members of the ABA and also Mbba, and also members of the MBBA are counted when it comes time at the annual convention, right, for elections to take place for president-elect, and all of the officers and delegates for the NBA. Now, of course, President Hoffler could very well go into a lot more detail than I could, but I have to say that the NBA has been, more than welcoming and helpful in, making sure that we reach our capacity, we reach our potential, and also are able to communicate the messages that we as bar leaders want to communicate. And I have to say also Region 2, so the NBA has various regions based on the location of each of the affiliate bar associations. We in New York are part of Region 2, and
Shout out to Genya Grant.
Yes, I was just going to say Genya's on here. Thank you so much, Genya, who is, the regional director for Region 2, and we're able to get together, on a monthly basis to talk about what we are all experiencing, what we are doing, share ideas. The MBA also, advertises and helps us with outreach in terms of getting our programming and our message across, on a national level, and helping us connect with other Black Bar Association leaders so that we can continue to do what we do on a daily basis and get that support, because we know that as Black Bar Association leaders, it's not easy. And it moves very, very quickly, especially at these times. And so having the support of other leaders is what the NBBA and our affiliation is all about.
Wonderful, thank you. So Justice Hall, you already talked about why and how you joined the MBA. It was your sister. And kind of interestingly, I have to say the same thing. So I was at a big firm, but even back then, when I think I was maybe a senior associate, and my brother, Jamie Boston, shout out to you. He's the one who really introduced me to the MBA. Sometimes, I think you mentioned earlier, back in the day, we weren't always in the big firms or the corporate arena. And so sometimes some of us didn't know it. And I will tell you, at Columbia Law School, I was active and involved in BALSA. I really was. But I just really didn't know much about the MBA. And so it was just such a blessing. The City Bar, quite frankly, was the first bar I joined. So it's just, I have to say, it's near and dear to my heart. It's my professional bar association home originally and still. And so it's amazing to now be the president of this august body. But like I said, around senior associate, maybe my 8th or 9th year of working at a firm, my brother was like, I'm involved in the MBA, and what's wrong with you? How come you're not involved with this? And I just, he got me. And so I was like, okay, I've got to step up and get involved because my baby brother is telling me I've got to do this. So Past President Brown, tell us, how did you first get involved with a Black Bar Association? Which one was it and how?
Well, as I said, I was a member of the NBA while I was in law school. And while I was studying for the bar, maybe a week or two before, there was a notice that the Met Bar was having a meeting. And so I needed a break from studying for the bar. And I went to the meeting. It was in Lower Manhattan. I think it might have been in the Housing Court. And coincidentally, so this is going to be July of 1994. Who did I sit next to? The Honorable Elle Priscilla Hall. And as any smart young whippersnapper, I said something and she quickly corrected me. And I think she has been a friend and mentor ever since. And so the Met Bar was the actual first meeting that I went to while I was in law school. I did not have the pleasure of going to an NBA convention. I've gone to several of those. And if you haven't done it, you're missing something. So post-COVID, you need to get that chance. But the Met Bar, Judge Hall, and a host of other judges who were on the board of the MBBA welcomed me in. And I was going to a large firm. And what I noticed then was that there were many members of large firms who were not members of the MBBA. And so by the time I became president, we tried to change that so that everyone could appreciate the benefits. I did not have the benefit of a parent who was a lawyer. And so having a whole group of people that I could let my hair down when I had hair, the Met Bar did all of that for me. So I greatly appreciated that experience.
Wonderful. Okay, President Hoffler, you are now the Presidente of the one and only National Bar Association. But
Yes.
how is it that you first got involved? Tell us about your journey.
Well, when I was in law school, I went to Georgetown, as you mentioned, and one of my classmates was Mario Cooper, and his brother had gone to, I was very, very good friends with John Crump, who was then the executive director of the MBA. This was many years ago. This was in 1985. And he said, we've got to meet John Crump. We got to meet John Crump. So we went to John Crump's office, which was very close to the law school, and we sat down, and John Crump had me believing that there was only one mandatory bar in the universe, and that was the National Bar Association, and that all the other bars were whatever, if you wanted to, but the National Bar Association was the only mandatory bar. So I left and I said, well, I have to be a member of the National Bar because, it's mandatory. And that's how I became a member of the National Bar Association. And because I was there in Washington, I had Dave Wilmot was our dean, who was an extraordinary member of the National Bar Association. So we really didn't have a lot of choices. We had to join. We were told to join. Our dean told us to join. And I believe I got my first job opportunity because of the National Bar Association, because they called I first worked for a firm by the name of Finley, Cumbo, Wagner, Heine, Underberg, Manley, Myers, and Casey. For those of you who are of a certain age group, which I'm not in, I just happen to remember, but anyway, you'll remember Finley Cumble because it crumbled. But before it crumbled, I was a summer associate there, and the senior partners that hired me reached out to Dave Wilmot, reached out because that's what happened, to say, who are your best and your talented, students? And this was an NBA connection where, they wanted to have minority students. Finley Cumble was a huge firm, and they were building that talent pool. And so that's how I got my first job. I really believe that. It was because of the National Bar Association presence and network.
All right, wonderful to hear. Okay, President Cissé-Green, tell us how you got involved. What happened?
So I like you, President Boston. The City Bar was the first bar that I joined in law school, but I also remember that BALSA had a meeting, a general body meeting, and that Diane Ridley Gatewood came to speak to us about the Association of Black Women Attorneys. And at that moment, I was like, how come nobody ever told me about this? I didn't even know. And so Mbba immediately sort of became my go-to at that point. And it was absolutely amazing. All of the sisters that I met in Mbba, I was a member of the board of directors of Mbba for quite a while. It's an absolutely amazing organization, just like Judge Hall had said. It is a sisterhood. And from there, I became a member of the Metropolitan Black Bar Association back in 2005 when I was at my first law firm, and have been a member since. And it's just, it's absolutely amazing just to hear the stories and to see the individuals that represent these associations, because you immediately connect with them, and they're shouting and just telling you all the things that you need and want to hear that no one was telling you from before, especially being a law student. And you need that. You need to hear it. You need to see these people. And it's great, President Hoffler, that your dean was telling you to join. I mean, I wish we had that same connection. While we have connections with law schools, having the ability for your leaders to tell you, listen, here are associations where you will connect and you'll feel comfortable and get what you need. That's exactly what we as bar associations are about.
I am so excited that people are calling out names. That is an African-American tradition, may I just say. We call out the names, all right, because it's a part of history. Beautiful, beautiful. So, past President Brown, and I think that President Cissé-Green kind of alluded to this, but would you care to share with us, what, if any, differences are there between, I guess, what we call an affinity group, Black Bar Associations as an example, and our majority, I'll call them majority mainstream associations, such as my beloved City Bar?
I think that there are some differences, but by and large, they are ultimately the same. You have your specialty focus, you make connections, et cetera. I think, though, that the affinity bar associations have the ability to sort of touch your soul in a number of ways. There are issues that are impacting your community that's very, very important to you that a majority bar association may not be as involved in. And I want to be clear. I believe that belonging to bar associations is an investment in yourself. So I was a member of the ABA. I was a member of the board of the New York State Bar Association. I was a member of the board of NYCLA, and I chaired their audit committee, and I chaired the New York State Committee on Diversity. And I would encourage law students. My daughter is the president of the BALSA at Hofstra. And I think some of her classmates are watching now. And I would encourage you to invest in a bar association. And I would ask you, or to suggest to you, to ask your parents to buy you a lifetime membership before you graduate. It's the best investment you could ever make. But with regard to your question, President Boston, I think you get all that you can from both bar associations. But if you just look at the math, you have an opportunity to get into a leadership capacity with one of the affinity bar associations, and you develop skills as you develop in your practice. And sometimes you may hold concurrent leadership positions in a quote unquote majority bar and an affinity bar. And then you develop time management skills. A lot of my transformation experience came from managing very large nonprofits and the skills you develop in that, as well as time management. I think that the difference is, imagine being a relatively recent law school graduate and sitting next to the Honorable George Bundy Smith at a board meeting and being able to ask questions, right, of someone sitting on the highest court for the state of New York. And those sorts of experiences are invaluable, particularly, as I said, if you don't have family members to call and to have a dinner table conversation. I graduated from law school and I still don't know the rule of perpetuities. But if I needed to, there's someone that I could ask in the NBA, the NBA, the Mbba, and even Mbba. And I think that all of the affiliates have a very, very close relationships, and it's just that special. And President Boston, I would say this: our pastor uses a phrase, loving myself doesn't require me to hate anyone else.
Amen.
And being strongly involved in the Affinity Bar Association, there's nothing wrong with it. And well as jointly being involved in the majority bar associations. There's a role, there's a need. There is a first-time law student graduating from someone's law school, and they need that connection. And the affinity bars have the capacity to do that than some of the larger bars, just simply because of the lack of intimacy.
Thank you, Past President Brown. And now, I have to give a shout out to the Reverend Dr. Calvin Otis Butts III, who is our pastor over at Abyssinian, just saying. Okay, let's move right along. President Cissé-Green, Executive Director Brett Parker, whom I love and adore, he alluded to this earlier about the close relationship between the City Bar, the Bar of Hope, and all of the affinity bars that are in the New York City metropolitan area. Could you just briefly give a little description so people have an idea of how we work together?
Absolutely. I mean, Brett is, President Boston and Brett are amazing partners. And on an annual basis, we are always partnering to make sure that we can bring the best of each other. Right. And as past President Brown said, Black bar associations have that soul. Right. But we also recognize that a lot of the affinity bar associations are smaller, right? Smaller means, less resources, less capacity, and time is endless. And partnering with NYCLA, the City Bar, ABA, and the other majority bar associations allows us to extend our reach, but also to support one another and help us reach our objectives. Right. And it also is important because especially, times like Black History Month, right? For us, Black Bar Associations, every day is Black History Month, right? But for the majority bar associations, we know that I was a longtime member and still am a member of the ABA. I held leadership positions with the ABA. And every single time we had a meeting, it was all diversity, diversity. Where do we get, how do we increase our numbers? Right. And I think the issue with the majority bar associations is, as past President Brown has said, that you need that level of intimacy, right? You need that comfort. But partnering with the major bar associations, I think has been great for us because it does help us learn from one another and teach one another, which is extremely important.
Thank you. Justice Hall, I'm coming to you now. So, that there are some critics out there. I like to call them haters, okay? There are some out there who would say affinity bar associations, they're un-American. They're about segregation. We know that the past administration, which will go nameless, had an executive order which denied federal agencies and contractors to even have diversity trainings that talk about things such as white privilege and other concepts. Saying that, their goal was to combat offensive and anti-American race and sex stereotyping and scapegoating. What would you say to someone who would be a critic and say, you don't need those affinity bar associations and they're too divisive? What would you say to that?
I always think it's very interesting that first people oppress you and keep you and deny you things, and then they criticize you for failing to do what it is they think you should do. So now we've already indicated, as President Ck Hoffler has stated, that one of the reasons there's a national bar is because you couldn't join the ABA at one point. One of the reasons that there is the Mbba, or there was a Harlem Lawyers and the Bedford-Stuyvesant Lawyers, is because you couldn't join the New York City Bar. One of the reasons that there is a national medical association is because they couldn't get into the AMA. And in fact, even when you got your religion, if you were Baptist, you couldn't join the Southern Baptists. So there was such a thing as the National Baptist. So we have been precluded, but that preclusion also has another side, and that has given us strength. It taught us how to work together. And these organizations gave us the opportunity when nobody else would allow us to lead each other, to support each other. The other reason for affinity bars is it lets us, our history lives through us. So when you call out those names, how would I know about Charlotte Ray if I didn't know about from the ABWA, the first Black woman judge, first Black woman lawyer? How would I know about Ruth Whitehead Haley? Well, how would I know about Jane Matilda Boland? How would I know about Connie Baker Motley, who until recently we thought was the first Black woman graduate of Columbia, actually turns out to be the second. First was Elrita Alexander. We just found that. How would I know about all these names of great lawyers who were women or who were men without the Black bar? And you have to be told over and over again. You can't hear it once, but every time you go to the National Bar Association annual convention, you hear these names again. William Hastie, A. Leon Higginbotham, Thurgood Marshall, Charles Houston, A. McCree. I mean, all these names you need to know because you don't know who you are until you know where you came from. That's why we need the affinity. You can tell I'm a PK, right?
Thank you, Justice Hall. I know that PKs are in the house. For those of you who may not know, that stands for Preacher's Kid, just saying. Okay, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. All right, now I'd like to turn to the missions and the accomplishments of our Black Bar Associations. And so I want to start with past President Brown. Remind us again when you were president of the MBBA, and tell us what the main agenda, just give us a flavor of what was going on at the time.
So I was the 9th president of the Metropolitan Black Bar Association, and I served from 1998 to 2000. And so one of the things, just thinking about it and the term virtual, we had a virtual bar association because we didn't have an office. We weren't using the term virtual in the way that it's being used today. And so, President Green mentioned limited resources. And so the things that we focused on, I would say, were bread and butter issues, assisting and attempting to appropriately influence African Americans to be reported out of the judicial screening panels, dealing with the Civilian Complaint Board, and dealing with other issues that really impacted our members because, again, there was a lack of diversity and no one was really actively soliciting. It wasn't in an environment where anyone was considering a Black lawyer for any particular position. And in addition, there were police brutality issues that we had to address. So those were the sorts of issues that we had to be involved in and we focused on. And then the other basic bread and butter of cash flow. So we made sure that our fundraising was sufficient enough that we can do the sorts of things that we wanted to do. We did free clinics and assisted various community endeavors. So during that term, those were the things that we focused on. And I think President Green has certainly taken it to the next level and those that come after me. But, we were a very scrappy organization in terms of resources, but we did the things that needed to be done. And we did not have the time to deal with theoretical issues, right?
Interesting. Okay, so that was 2 decades ago. Now, the MBBA today in 2021, I want you to compare and contrast what you just heard, President Cissé-Green. What's going on with the MBBA now? All the acronyms, all right.
So I am now the 21st president of the MBBA. And I have to say, well, the mission has stayed the same. We are still addressing, sadly enough, some of the same issues, right? Police brutality, lack of resources, communicating and providing knowledge to all of our community members and addressing the issues, the legal issues that our community members are facing on a daily basis, especially during this pandemic. I think that has been a prime focus, and not just our community members, but also the issues that are being faced by our law students and all of our practicing attorneys and Black legal professionals. And so we are definitely focusing on growing, expanding our capacity, because the foundation laid by past President Brown and all of my predecessors have allowed us to be able to take it to the next level, right? Where we can provide more services, more legal clinics, right? And also more collaboration with those that understand and believe and adopt the mission of the MBBA, which is to serve justice, provide opportunities for our Black lawyers and our Black law students. And so the mission remains the same, the goal is the same, and the way that we have to come about it is different because of the way that, you know, everybody is doing business and living differently during these times.
Got it. Got it. Thank you so much. So that's the MBBA. Now let's move to the National Bar Association. So I'm going to start with you, Justice Hall. Can you remind us approximately the years, if you don't mind, when you joined the NBA, and tell us about one or two issues that were really percolating at the time when you were just joined the NBA. There we go.
Are you asking about the NBA or the
NBA?
NBA? Okay, I joined the NBA, must have been back in the late 70s. Like I said, as you indicated, my younger sister got me involved with the NBA. I was active in the ABWA, but not the, until I got involved with the NBA. And since I've been a member for a long time, both as a lawyer and as a judge, I think what you've seen is whatever issues that are facing Black lawyers face organization. At the beginning, a lot of the lawyers were single practitioners. A lot of them were from the South. They were doing voting rights. They were defending people who were being brutalized. They had issues in terms of small organizations. They had to find business, and so they served each other. So if you needed a lawyer in South Carolina and you were in another state, you could call somebody from the NBA and they would give you a lawyer for a particular kind of discipline, labor law, negligence, whatever. You could find another lawyer. As the organization have Black lawyers have gotten more involved now, a lot of them are working in government. They're working in government service. And so then you need to have a situation where you can reach out. The bar can train you in labor law, and they would have committees that you could go to in the NBA to study the areas that you're interested in. And then you could meet lawyers in that division or in that subject matter, whether or not it's alternative dispute or whether or not it's real estate or whatever it was. You could study that and get that cross generation. Same thing now, a lot of the lawyers are in firms. Whole different experience. People like Lloyd Brown and Joe Drayton, and they have just moved everything up to a whole new level. I mean, it's
okay.
For me just to see what they can do. Whenever they have the old days, you knew everybody at the annual meeting, or you knew everybody at the dinner. Now you go and you look around, the room is a block long, and you have no idea who those people are on the other side of the block.
Okay, I've got it, Justice. I've got it, Justice Hall. So now we're coming to 2021. She already introduced us into it, President Hoffler. But tell us a little bit about what is the main mission and what has been the agenda and kind of your focus for the NBA right now.
Well, certainly. There are three, we are just living amidst pandemics.
Yep.
Multiple pandemics. And so what I focused on in my year, and I've got about 4 more months, has been the 3 main pandemics: COVID-19, voter suppression or election protection, and police brutality. And I have got to say, the NBA stepped up to the plate as leaders in each of those 3 areas. Let's just talk about police brutality. You all know that every single high profile case, actually probably low profile or no profile case, but certainly all the high profile cases that you see nationally and internationally of police brutality are being led by NBA lawyers. Ben Crump. Do we need to talk about Ben Crump? Past president of the NBA. Daryl Parks, past president of the NBA. Lonita Baker, one of the few women that we see out there fighting in these types of police brutality cases. She's a vice president of the NBA. Lee Merritt has so many police brutality cases. He's an extraordinary NBA member. Chris Stewart, by the way, I call him one of my children in the law because I helped to train him when I was a partner at Willie Gary's office. He had it on one case got a $1 billion verdict with a B in Atlanta, Georgia. But you see him on TV regularly fighting the fight in these civil rights cases. He's a past president of an affiliate chapter. So here we have our affiliate chapters represented. They are so critical for our mission. And so when we have all these people you see on TV, there are MBA members. They were trained, what's key? They were trained at the MBA. Judge Hall talks about those programs, those CLEs, those training sessions. We have become so diversified because of the breadth of what Black lawyers are doing and judges and law students and law professors are doing in this country. We are everywhere and we are at the top of the profession. And the MBA captures all of that. So when you see these lawyers out there on the front lines fighting, just know there are lawyers trained at the MBA, the national MBA, and they work with our affiliate chapters. And that's the beauty of the MBA. There was a time when we know that we were born out of being excluded, but now, even when it comes to things such as judicial appointments, presidential appointments, if someone calls me, as happened today, and says, we would like to have African-American judicial candidates from X district, I'm going to produce NBA members from X district because we have that level of extraordinary talent. And that's the beauty of the national organization. These affinity groups are like oxygen. We need them for survival. That's my view. It's not a question, well, we need them for our very survival because it is not always easy. I don't care if you're a billionaire. I don't care if you are at the top of your profession, if you are the most extraordinary justice there, as we see on this panel, you still need the support of the affinity groups. It's part of your survival mechanism. Sometimes you encounter such horrific things in the course of practice, no matter who you are, that you just need a place to call home, a place where you can let down your hair, a place where you can talk to someone who's been through that, a place where you can refuel and get some pointers on how to pivot out of that devastating situation. And some of those situations can be just based on your color of your skin. Mm-hmm. And so it's critical for us to be here. And I just hate to drop names. We've got Willie Gary. We talk about the biggest and the baddest trial lawyers of all times. We have to talk about Willie Gary and Johnny Cochran.
There you go.
NBA members, I could talk forever.
Sure. I know you could. I know, bless your heart. Can you just break it down really quickly though, your top three? Because you said you have
police brutality, COVID-19, and election suppression. Those are 3 areas of focus.
Got it. And I would submit that all of those, except for COVID-19, are a repetition of the past, or they're recurring themes, right?
Well, it wasn't COVID, but maybe it was the experiment in Tuskegee, the simplest experiment that our past president, Fred Gray, handled in representing all those plaintiffs. He also happened to be also the lawyer for Dr. King and Rosa Parks and so many others. But I say that because those legends, that's the National Bar Association. He is now in voting litigation. I have the honor of serving as his co-counsel, and it's an MBA-led team, 7 lawyers, voting litigation in Georgia to restore to the rolls over 200,000 Georgians who were improperly removed. National Bar Association legend, Fred Gray, is on that trial team. It's just something when he talks to us as part of the effort, and that's one of the buckets, voter suppression. It's amazing to hear because they were confronting the same thing in the
recurring themes
in the 70s. So it's over and over and over again, but we have to keep on fighting.
Got it. All right. Justice Hall, I want to ask you a question. When I think of judges, you're like, for the most part, we think you've made it. Okay. You're the apex of your career. So why is it that a judge, and of course, in this context, we're talking about a Black female judge, why would you need a Black Bar Association?
The Black Bar Association is essential, if not critical, for judges. Who is going to speak on our behalf? Very often, a lot of things we are not able to comment on. We have taken an oath. We can't talk about cases. And if someone decides to criticize us, whether it's fairly or unfairly, we can't say anything. The only person that can say anything is the Black Bar. And that's why we need the Black Bar when we unfairly criticized. People like Ruth's right can be defended by the MBBA. People like other judges, when they get into trouble for doing what I consider the right thing, the black bar can step up and say, this person's following the law. Here is the law. This is what it stands for. They have met that standard. They have told you what the facts are. They have told you what the law is, and they are correct. The black bar can do that when the judge cannot. And the black bar and the judges work together. I mean, the MBBA, when it got started, the president was a lawyer. First chair was George Bundy Smith. Second chair of the board was Priscilla Hall. We always work together so that they will know what our issues are. We know what their issues are. There's this exchange, communication, so that we can always work together on behalf of the Black community.
I got it. Okay, Judge, I get it. I get it. So justices are people too. All right. Okay. President Cissé-Green. Bar associations are typically 501c6s, maybe C3s, but they're supposed to be nonpartisan. Okay. There's this thing that sometimes we call Black politics. There are certain issues that tend to especially be of concern to Black people. How do you deal with the fact that your organization, is supposed to be nonpartisan, but there are certain issues that are very important to our people, and we want to help promote or fix things, if you will, in a legal manner. So talk about that little tension. I call it a tightrope, quite frankly. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, and it is a tightrope, right? But I think what people tend to forget is that 501c6 organizations, right? They are member organizations, and the reason that they exist is so that like-minded individuals who are facing the same issues can come together and figure out how to resolve those issues, right? And so when we are looking at politics, we're not saying that we cannot speak out, right? There is a stark difference between, advocating and fundraising for, a political candidate, an elected official, but it's about advocacy, right? It is about advocacy. It's about speaking up. It's about providing information, right? And so even something as simple as a candidate forum, right? It is nonpartisan because what we are doing is providing information to the community so that they can be informed, so that they know the individuals that they are going to be voting for, right? So it is a tightrope because of the fact that you have to be careful and you don't want to cross those lines and, jeopardize your, tax exemption status. But it's about advocacy. And I think that is the first thing that we need to think about when we are trying to, consider whether or not we should, issue a particular position statement, right? Or invite particular individuals who may be out there campaigning. It's about who we are. It's about the issues that face us. And so while it's not always very clear, it is something that we always have to keep at the back of our minds. And that's why I always say it's about advocacy, all right? And it is nonpartisan.
Okay, I like that answer. Past President Brown, as president of the New York City Bar Association, I've deemed it, I call it the Bar of Hope. And I'm very proud of a lot of things we've done, but probably most proud of public stances, strong stances we have taken to protect the rule of law. I'm just curious, when you were president of the MBBA, is there like one or two accomplishments of which you are especially proud?
Well, I initially had something else in mind, but I want to go back to something that Judge Hall referenced with regard to speaking out on behalf of justices. Particularly the New York Post and the Daily News had been very, very vicious towards a number of justices and judges when I was president. And we had members who wrote editorial pieces and editorial boards, and just being able to respond on behalf of the judges because they could not represent themselves or speak out. And so I think that in and of itself, right? If you think about it over the years, it's a small number of judges just to begin with. And then anytime any of them are unfairly criticized and they have a stain, the general public, they're going to believe, one of these sensational newspapers, and a judge cannot respond to it. So I think being able to protect our judges, assist the judges and do things that they can't do. One of the things in being a second career lawyer is that I understand a little bit about fundraising. When I practiced real estate law, a partner would say to me, like life, many things can be solved with money. Not all, but many. And so when you think about judicial campaigns, right, I've had the pleasure of being the treasurer and working with various judges in terms of their campaign. Understanding finances and funds and being able to be a facilitator and a catalyst is also critically important. And so I think that in the context of traditional bar associations, the affinity or Black bar associations play multiple role and critical roles because they're at the forefront of being a leader in various efforts and initiatives. And from my background, coming with a finance standpoint, if you want to do good, right, you have to do well. You have to manage the books. You have to have resources to pass on to your successor. You have to have a firm footing. And so those are the sorts of things that we brought to the conversation, right? Because I had all of the geniuses around me. But again, bread and butter is very, very critical.
I hear you. Thank you. Coming back to you, President Cissé-Green, what's the one thing you're most proud of that you've done at the MBBA?
So I'd have to say it's our extension to the community and our ability to really represent the community members. And really it's my predecessors who, starting with Taya Grays back in 2015, really made it a point to reach out and be part of the community, created the I Am Solutions campaign where we went into the community, partnered with elected officials to talk about issues that were really at top of mind of the communities. And from there, we've done community law days, partnered with our officials. We have, Paula Edgar, who is on here, past president, started the Black Bar Series, an attempt to really represent Black-owned bars in New York City in all 5 boroughs. And so the legacy, and I think the continuation of the programs and the vision that were started by our predecessors, I think that is the one thing that I'm very proud of, that we've been able to carry that forward from administration to administration and really represent the communities.
A shout out to Taya Grays and Paula Edgar. All right, love you ladies. Justice Hall, I'm gonna give you a choice. You can either talk about ABWA or the MBA, but share with us just one important accomplishment of either of those 2 prestigious organizations.
One of the many things that the National Bar has done is work with South Africa and working against anti-apartheid. The NBA was a monitor during that election when Nelson Mandela was running for president. We sent, I think, past President Paulette Brown, John Crump, and I think Junius Williams were there on the ground, overseeing and making sure that that election was fair.
Love it.
So I'm just really, what we do at home in terms of defending our rights, the rights of Black people under Ck Hoffler and election protection, we've done that then, we're doing it now, and we are doing it internationally.
Excellent, excellent example. Shout out to past President Paulette Brown, who has been president not only of the NBA, but also the American Bar Association.
First Black woman, that's right.
For sure, for sure. President Hoffler, I want you to jump in real quickly. Just one though, just one major accomplishment.
I've got to say, it is the role that the NBA played in the election protection in both the presidential and the Georgia Senate runoff elections. Outstanding. Our partnerships with the Divine Nine, Lawyers Committee, NAACP, all of the organizations that we historically partnered with and knew made a difference. We had over 7,000 lawyers ready to fight for election protection, which is nonpartisan, for people's right to vote, their ability to vote. And then in the runoff election for the Senate, the Senate race in Georgia, the NBA again played such a critical role in partnering with some of the grassroots organizations here in Atlanta and making sure that people understood, because there was so much disinformation, their rights and that there was a runoff and they should vote without voter suppression. There was so much voter suppression, and the National Bar stepped in, especially those young lawyers, YLD, Onika Williams, a shout out to them. They were magnificent. So that's what I'm most proud of, because I think we made a difference. I think we made a difference in making sure and educating our communities that people had the right to vote, and making sure that they were registered and that we were there to have their back legally, because that's what Black lawyers should be doing, I believe, one of the things in this country and elsewhere. So I'm very proud of that.
Beautiful, beautiful. Someone alluded to it earlier, and I kind of skipped over this question, but I think I do want to ask it. What is it like to be the leader of a Black Bar Association? Do you think it's especially tough or especially easy? I'm just curious, some thoughts about that. I'm going to try to start with Past President Brown. You want to chime in on that one?
I think leadership, regardless of the forum, requires just continuous learning and openness, and also an appreciation of servant leadership. It's not about you. It shouldn't be for you. And it's just critically important that you start with that. In addition, my mentors who are non-lawyers advise me, do your day job exceedingly well. A leader of a bar association who's unemployed is not going to be the most effective leader, because he or she has to pay the mortgage. And so do your day job incredibly well, have the support of your organization, and have the ability to marshal resources from your friends and fellow members. And so when I think of the things that I was involved in, making sure that the day job was done, it gave me the latitude, as my bosses would say, to be overextended in the nonprofit arena. I have been blessed in so many ways, and the sorts of things that I got involved in was a way for me to give back and to be effective on a much larger scale rather than on a one-on-one individual scale. And so I think that being a leader, you have to make sure that your behavior and conduct doesn't appear above the fold in any newspaper. You've got to make sure that all your dealings, all of your past involvement, it might be one of the reasons why I'm not on any social media. So I don't have to apologize for anything that I've said on social media because I'm not there. And so, it's a big weight, and you represent your organization. I'm currently the chair of the Executive Leadership Council, and a number of opportunities present themselves. I decline all of them if there's a personal benefit or gain for me, because I did not sign up to get anything out of that. I signed up to give something back. And so there's a lot of pressure. All of us here want to make sure that our successors have a better runway than we may have found. And again, it's just incrementally, not that we found something that was bad. We want to make sure that the organization is well respected and that all the doors continue to be open for us and to go forward. And it's also an opportunity for us to continue to learn and grow in our own walk. And so, I cherish all of my experiences with the Bar Association. I'm no longer practicing, but I can tell you that it's just been helpful. And I will just make one other observation, particularly being in finance. If you look at Dick Parsons, if you look at Deborah Wright, if you look at TIA CEO Roger Ferguson, if you look at the Merck CEO Ken Frazier, if you look at Ken Chenault, all of these people happen to be lawyers. Whether they call it out or not, is it a coincidence? And I think Bob Johnson as well might have been an attorney, if I'm not mistaken. And so the skill set allows you to do a lot of things, whether it's civil rights or what I like to phrase it as silver rights. So the leadership skills allow you to transfer skills and to be a beacon of hope and light for those who come behind you that say, I didn't even know that there were Black lawyers or Black financial professionals, et cetera. So it's an honor, it's a privilege, and you get to meet people like all of you here on this panel.
Amen to that. It is what I treasure most about being president of the Bar of Hope. I must say, I am surrounded by some just spectacularly talented, gifted, smart people. And I just love interacting with them and learning from them. President Cissé-Green, I don't know if you wanted to add anything. Is there anything different about being the leader of a Black Bar Association?
So I agree with past President Brown. It's a lot of work, I think, regardless of where you are. But I think, well, at least for me, it means more, right? It means more because, I got into this also to help, to give back, to be able to return the favor that others did for me when I was a law student. And it I think I see the immediate effect that I have on our members, on our officers, and the effect that they have on me. And so it is different. I think the skill sets that you learn, the time management, the connections, the networking, right? I think it's similar regardless of which bar association it is. But to me, there seems to be more value in the way that I connect with the members of the Black Bar Association. And it's different from the way that I was able to do so being in the ABA or other bars as a leader.
President Hoffler, I don't want to leave you out. What do you think?
Well, I think I would agree. I would concur with what past President Brown has said and what President Green has said. But I would say you have to look at it as a labor of love. It's got to be. And that's what, for me, serving as president of the National Bar, it is more of an honor for me than for any of the members of the National Bar. I can assure you, it's a labor of love, but you have to know how to walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. Not regular gum, but bubble gum at the same time. And you have to know how to deal with paupers and queens and kings, sometimes in the same breath. Because we have to be very flexible. You have to be able to break things down because we're a service-oriented organization.
Yeah.
We represent the people. People come to the National Bar with problems that really they should come to individual lawyers because they know we serve the community. You have to have openness of mind and be able to communicate with those people the same way that you would communicate with the President of the United States or Vice President Kamala Harris.
Well
You
said.
must do it.
Well said.
I meant to say she's also one of our members of the National Bar.
I'm gonna let you
Just
name
wanted to drop that.
You're gonna get to name drop. You're gonna get
Okay, all right.
But I so appreciate you sharing that, President Hoffler. And I'm just gonna go ahead and share with folks. So before I even really knew President Hoffler, there were people who told me that we were very similar. They said, you guys are, what is it, sister from another mister kind of thing. And so it just amazed me when she used that phrase, labor of love. And my executive director, Brett Parker, can attest to this. Like I always say that my work for the city bar, my beloved city bar, is a labor of love. It really has, it's tons of work. I tell people, to some extent, it's become my day job. And then Arnold Reporter is my night job, please. I hope nobody will really hear that or relay that back. I know there's some of them listening, but it's okay. But it's a labor of love. You truly have to have a servant's heart. I really believe that you have to respect people and believe that, everyone can have an opinion and should be able to share it. And you have to be a masterful negotiator, I think. Just saying, there are different things you have to be able to do. So I greatly appreciate that. So I'm going to ask one last question, then we'll see if we have questions from our audience. When we were preparing for this call, there was a point at which I said something to the effect of, well, I can't wait for that year, that day, when there won't be a need for affinity bar associations because, we'll all be integrated and it's going to be kumbaya and we are going to have, I talk a lot about, preach, if you will, a lot about the beloved community, because that is my goal. That is my aim, that we're all getting along well together. And I know it probably won't happen. I don't want to put it in the air. It might not happen while I'm alive, but that's what we're striving for, right? Martin Luther King's dream that one day, all of God's children. And I said that. And so then I said to you, well, what's your prediction for the Black Bar Association in, let's say, 30 years? And I actually got a little bit of pushback, which I respected and I understand and think it's great. So I'm going to start with you, past President Brown. Let's start there. What's your prediction for the Black Bar Association in some 30 years or so?
My prediction is that the need for the Black Bar 30 years from now will be greater.
Explain.
The notion that 70 million people voted for a particular individual suggests to me that I have to quote, paraphrase a phrase that said, God bless the child who has his own. It's always good, right, to be welcomed. But if you get turned away, you need a place to go. And so I think that the role, the need, particularly when we talk about serving our communities and other communities, right? So last night I saw the situation with Asian Americans being victimized, and I think we need to speak out against that. But I do say, with respect to the affinity bars, having both shouldn't be an issue. It shouldn't be an either or. And I think the relationships that I developed with lawyers, professors, judges would not have happened in some of the larger bars. We cried together at my mother's funeral when the pianist that I hired had a childcare gap. Judge Hall, the PK, stepped in and played the piano, right? So when do you have someone, an associate justice, come in and do that for you? You develop relationships. And so the Black Bar is like good food, jazz, it's your soul, it's your heart. I can't imagine an environment where that would happen. I've tried to impart on my daughter that should never happen. And so my prediction is, unfortunately, the need will even be greater just based on what I've seen. And if I'm wrong, the world will just benefit from having a dynamic affinity bar association.
All right, Justice Hall, you want to weigh in on this? 30 years from now, what do you predict?
Well, I remember, what was it? Grutter versus Bollinger, where Sandra Day O'Connor predicted in 25 years there would be no need for affirmative action. And here we are, if not 25 years, almost 25 years later. And the need is greater now. I have to say amen to what Brother Brown just said. Where will you find people like-minded who understand you, who you can work with because you have similar backgrounds and have a similar view and perspective on the issues? And there may not be COVID-19, but there will be something else. There was Superstorm Sandy, when all of the Black people in New Orleans were drowning. I mean, there's always something going on that the affinity bar needs to be present and just step up and speak on behalf of our people. And I just want to say one thing about the presidents of the affinity bar, and especially the Mbba bars, the ABWA bar, and Mbba. The presidents that were the best presidents, in my opinion, were the ones who loved people. And you can tell. You can tell when Lloyd Brown is the president, when Joe Drayton is the president, when C.K. Hoffler is the president, when Darrell Parks is the president. Those people have an affinity for people. You can see it in the way they treat the people who they serve. Wow. The people who they serve, not the people that they in charge of, but the people that they serve. And that difference is all the difference.
That reminds me of a picture I saw recently. Someone listed or showed, maybe it was on LinkedIn. So I'm with you, Brother Brown. I'm not a big social media person. Sorry, Paula Edgar, who's the social media guru. I'm on LinkedIn, that's it, okay? But it reminds me of a picture I saw of, and we have to call out his name, President Barack Obama. There's a picture of him giving £1 to someone who's a janitor. And it said, the caption said something to the effect of, true leadership is respecting others, or something to that effect. And I just thought that was so powerful and so true. So thank you so much for sharing that. All right, President Cissé-Green, do you have something you'd like to add? What do you see happening?
Well, I'm going to agree with everyone. I think there's going to be a need, but there's always going to be a desire as well. Right? I mean, look at how many first generation lawyers we still have today, right? There still are not enough of us out there to represent our communities and to help them get to where they need to be. So there is always that desire to want to be with someone, not just someone who looks like you, but someone who understands that you have different experiences than what they have had. And that is the key right there. Someone who can relate to you in the way that you are, recognize who you are, and be able to help you get to where you need to, and just listen to you and be there for you, support you, and connect you to the next person that will get you to the next step. So not only is there going to be a desire, but there's going to be a need as well.
President Hoffler, what do you see in 30 years? Talk to us.
What I see, I agree with what everyone has said, but I think it's going to be incredibly important for us to maintain and to continue to forge ahead with these Fendi bar associations, these Black bar associations. And the reason for that, as long as my skin is Black, as long as we have people in this country who are born with Black skin, kinky hair, big hips. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? That don't look, that there are people who look different and other people who look down on that difference as part of just the nature or of the beast. There's going to be a need for Black bars. But I agree with President Green. There's a desire to make sure they never disappear because of what they have given each of us. I call it survival as a professional. You see, there's only one place I can think of where, and I want to thank, Justice Hall for your kind comments that you were saying about loving people. But there's only one place I can think of, and that's the Mbba, where you could have, and I'm going to digress with the judges, Justice Peggy Quince. Justice Peggy Quince, the first and only Black woman to sit on the Florida Supreme Court and to be the chief judge, when there was a conservative group seeking to unseat her and two other what they called liberal judges for political reasons. And in Florida, on the Supreme Court, it's not supposed to be political. That for a judge is the fight of your life. Am I right, Judge Hall? That's the fight of your life because you don't have the ability to speak.
That's right.
You don't have, and so the honor only at the Mbba for me of a lifetime was that this incredible woman who I revered so much asked me to help and represent her and to be the co-chair to help her through this merit retention process. That's only at the Mbba. Because when your back is up against the wall, you don't have the ability to speak and all odds are against you. You're going to reach out to people you know have your back.
That's right. That's right.
And so that's always going to be. We need that because these bars give us that. They give us that sense and we want to do it. So will we need to have them? Absolutely. But we would want to because that's part of giving back. We have to do that. That's what we do in our tradition. And that's what the Mbba is about. And whether it's the Metropolitan Bar or any of the affiliate chapters, in Atlanta, we have 3 affiliate chapters in Atlanta because we just so bad with the Mbba there. We just got to have 3. If we could have maybe 4, 5, we might. But my point is that we have those chapters because of the need of the people in that community that need lawyers to speak truth to power because they look to us to do that. So that need will never leave. And thus these organizations can never leave because they are ingrained in our society, just like certain other pandemics are ingrained in our society. So there's never going to be a time when we're not needed. We are now more relevant than ever. And in the future, we will just continue to elevate and escalate in our relevance.
Got it. All right. Well, I'm looking at our question and answer. I'm going to go ahead and just read this because he placed it there. Kevin L. Jones, our brother from the NBA, sends a shout out. He says, thank you all for your wisdom and leadership. I just thought I'd share that in case you didn't see it. But we do have a question here. And it says, well, I'm not going to say what the name is. I hope that's okay. But it says, my question is, some of us who are newly admitted are finding it extremely difficult to find placement in law firms where we can learn the ropes. I, for one, am excited to put my hands to work and work effectively and efficiently. Can we be guided and or pointed in the right direction? Who would like to answer that question? And I definitely want to chime in myself, but you're the panelist, so who would like to go first?
First of all, that's a very insightful question and so relevant Because of COVID, things are all backed up, and the opportunities for our young lawyers are few and far between. That is for sure the case. That's where the National Bar, that's where these affiliate chapters, where these offending bars come into play and are most, I think, important for you, because we have partners and sponsors who have internship programs. We have extraordinary members who remember what it's like to be in your shoes that can mentor you. You need the benefit of mentoring, especially during these difficult times. And Sheila, I've got to talk about the extraordinary program that you, in large part, are responsible for putting in place, the partnership between Arnold and Porter and the National Bar Association, where we have actually created an institute that will help young lawyers survive and navigate in big law. Because just because you get a job at a big law firm doesn't mean you're going to make it or survive. That's one of the many, many, many benefits of being a member of the MBA. And we stagger the fees, so it's real inexpensive when you first start out. It's free when you're a student, and then we stagger it. And that's the guidance that you would need, would be, in my humble impression, through the National Bar Association. And it's not a question of whether you can afford it or not, because we are there to help with that very situation, because that is our calling, that is our mandate. And if we do nothing else for those new lawyers and incoming lawyers, we do so many other things, we do that spectacularly well.
So if you ask that question, you better be a member of the MBA, I'm just saying. But also, I want you to feel free, and I'm sure it's true of all the panelists, but I'm just gonna go ahead and put myself out there. Sheila.Boston@arnoldporter.com. Let's talk, okay? And let's see what we can do to assist you. But you have bar associations, people within, who care about you and your career and are willing to help. Okay.
And I'll put mine out to CK@CKHofflerFirm.com. That's CK@CKHofflerFirm.com. I have over 60 mentees that I mentor, and 61, 62, 65 it's all for me a labor of love. So please don't feel that you're alone and you have no way to turn.
Ditto. I feel the same way. I do want to give my executive director a chance to kind of close us out. I know, Brett, you said you didn't have to, but I'm going to do that. But I first, just from the bottom of my heart, my brothers and sisters, I love you, I love you, I love you. And I want to thank you so much for this evening, to the wonderful Lloyd W. Brown II, Anta Cissé-Green, Justice Elle Priscilla Hall, and the one and only Trisha Ck Hoffler. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I want to thank our co-sponsors. I have to give a shout out to the City Bar, which is my beloved, the Bar of Hope, and especially Christina Overton and Devanshi Shaw. You are wonderful. I love working with you. And, let's continue this dialogue. Let's continue the partnerships. All of you out there, everyone reach one, okay? Everyone reach one. God bless you. Thank you for being with us this evening. And Brett, I turn it over to you to close it out. Happy Black History Month.
I said I didn't want to talk after you, and then you did it to me. You put me right where I didn't want to be. So thanks to all of you. I mean, former President Brown, Judge Hall, former President Loeffler, President Cissé-Green. I mean, what an incredible conversation. And I also want to shout out to Conrad Harper.
Yes, he was the first Black president of the City Bar.
If we were sitting in the meeting hall, his portrait would be over that shoulder. So I want to make sure, and I'm very I like to adopt this practice of calling out names, because you really, if you don't think of these names and call them out and remember them, it's really hard to think of the shoes that they filled and the paths that they led. I will also shout out Judge Debbie Batts, a very active member of the New York City Bar, and Judge Abdul Salam, departed in the last couple of years, both friends and colleagues, and Judge Batts was a professor of mine, and so I want to call out their names and thank them for their involvement in the City Bar. Thanks to all of you. Thanks so much to the audience for the questions and the comments. I could feel everybody chiming in on the chat, so thank you so much. Please, everyone, be safe, be healthy, take care of one another, take care of yourselves, and I look forward to seeing everybody in person soon. Be well.
But we actually closed on time, Brett. Aren't you proud of me?
Yes, I am.
Because we love to talk.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. God bless.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great
Thank you all.
healthy.
Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.